It's December. Millions of Americans are tracking packages on their phones, refreshing delivery apps, waiting for gifts to arrive. Now imagine this. Somewhere between the port of origin and the U.S. warehouse, your package isn't delayed, but it's redirected. Not by weather, but by geopolitics. A bottleneck in the Panama Canal caused by drought. A Houthi drone strike on a container ship in the Red Sea. A tariff that makes it unprofitable for importers to move goods at all. That toy you ordered, that medicine you needed, they're no longer just late. They're now pawns in the global chessboard of trade, tariff, and power. That's the modern battlefield. Supply chains are no longer invisible. They're in the crosshairs. Let's talk about it. Hey everybody, welcome to Midweek SitRep, your bi-weekly briefing on what's happening in the world of national security. My name is Jerry Fowler, and I'm your host. Every other week, I give you the context you need to see what's really going on, so you can stay mission-focused. Today, we're talking about something that usually hides in the background until it breaks. Supply chains. The arteries of the global economy. They don't just move gifts under your tree. They move chips, medicine, and weapon systems. And when they're disrupted, it's not just business news, it's national security. So let's start by breaking down what supply chains really are and why they've become battlegrounds. Let's go. When you hear supply chains, don't picture just Amazon boxes on your doorstep or Walmart trucks on the highway. Supply chains are far bigger than that. They are the bloodstream of the global economy, carrying the raw materials, components, and finished products that keep nations alive. There's the inputs. It starts with the basics. Rare earths mined in China, lithium pulled from South American salt flats, wheat harvested in Ukraine, active pharmaceutical ingredients produced in India. These aren't just commodities. They are the DNA of modern life. Then there's the throughputs. That's the movement. Container ships stacked like floating skyscrapers. Freight trains pulling hundreds of cars across continents. Trucks crisscrossing borders. And increasingly, invisible pipelines. Digital logistics platforms, cloud-based tracking, and AI-driven scheduling systems. A disruption in code can stall cargo just as effectively as a storm at sea. Then there's the outputs. At the end of the chain are the products we depend on. Those cars that we drive. Those chips that power our phones. The satellites that guide our GPS. The medicines that stock our hospitals. And yes, those Christmas gifts waiting under your tree. Every link in the chain is a node of vulnerability. Knock out one mine, one port, one server, or one factory, and the shockwaves ripple across the world. Your supply chain is a battlefield, even if you don't realize you're on it. Now, when supply chains work, you do not hear about them in the news. They only show up when they break. And when they break loud. And always at the worst time. Let's talk about chokepoints. Think about the bottlenecks. In 2024, drought dropped water levels in the Panama Canal, cutting shipping capacity in half. Now, cargo was rerouted, but costs spiked, and Christmas orders sat in limbo. In 2021, a single container ship blocked the Suez Canal for 6 days, stranding $9 billion worth of goods per day. And the Strait of Malacca, a narrow waterway between Malaysia and Indonesia, carries a quarter of the world's trade. If that's blocked, The shockwaves would hit everything from oil prices to iPhone deliveries. There's also tariffs and trade wars. Trade policy isn't abstract. A 25% tariff on imports doesn't just hurt corporations, it raises prices. That $700 game console becomes $875. Your holiday shipping cart becomes a crash course in macroeconomics. Inflation doesn't start in Washington spreadsheets. It starts with shipping containers, duties, and supply shortages, and it lands squarely in your living room. There's also weaponization, and our adversaries know this. They understand timing. Disrupt a supply chain in June, and you annoy businesses. Disrupt it in December, right before the holidays, and you rattle families, consumers, voters. Scarcity isn't just an economic weapon. It's a psychological one. Empty shelves erode confidence, not just in the market, but in governments. That's why Washington has stopped treating supply chains as a background business issue. They're now seeing it for what it is: strategic terrain, as critical to national security as airspace or cyberspace. A blocked canal or a tariff spike can do what missiles can't: break public confidence. Let's talk about everybody's favorite topic: semiconductors. Under Christmas trees this year, you're probably going to find iPhones, PlayStations, laptops, all powered by one thing: advanced semiconductors. Chips are the brains of modern technology, and without them, your phone is just a brick, that console, a good paperweight, and your fighter jet is a grounded hunk of metal. Here's the catch. Over 60% of the world's most advanced semiconductors come from a single place. You guessed it, Taiwan. Another 15% come from South Korea. That means the most powerful militaries, the biggest tech companies, and yes, your holiday shopping list all depend on a tiny island just 100 miles from China's coast. And that's where the fragility shows. A naval blockade, a targeted cyber attack on foundries, or even a subtle export restriction would ripple across everything from F-35s to Xboxes. Beijing doesn't need to invade Taiwan to spark global chaos. It just needs to squeeze the flow of chips. And Washington knows this. That's why the CHIPS and Science Act committed more than $50 billion to build fabrication plants on U.S. soil. But here's the reality. You don't spin up a semiconductor fab overnight. It takes years, sometimes a decade, to get production rolling. Until then, America's ability to field the next generation weapons and your ability to unwrap the latest gadget on Christmas morning are all tied to the same fragile supply chain. Now, I talk a lot about technology and AI and chips, but supply chains are in everything. Let's talk about the medicine in the season of sickness. This isn't just about the gadgets and the tech, it's about survival. The United States relies on imports for the majority of its medicine. Did you know that? Roughly 80% of active pharmaceutical ingredients come from overseas, with China and India supplying the bulk. That means the pills that manage blood pressure, the antibiotics that fight infections, and even chemotherapy drugs are often tied to foreign supply chains. Now layer in December, flu season. Pediatric demand for antibiotics at its peak. Respiratory illnesses filling emergency rooms. If Beijing decided to tighten export licenses, slow inspections, or quietly hold shipments, the impact wouldn't show up in trade statistics. It would show up in American hospitals. You would have doctors scrambling, shelves empty, and families waiting while loved ones get sicker. And this isn't some hypothetical war game. China has already wielded rare earth exports as leverage in past trade disputes. Medicine could be next, and it would cut deeper. For everyday Americans, this wouldn't just mean higher copays. It would mean price spikes on essential drugs, pharmacies rationing supplies, or entire treatments just being delayed. That's not inconvenience. That's a national health risk hiding inside a supply chain problem. So if chips power our devices, medicine powers our survival. And both are dangerously dependent on foreign supply chains. So let's talk to the businesses. So during peak consumer season, supply chain resilience is no longer just a nice to have. It's strategy. There's some things that you can do to help. You can map dependencies. Don't stop at your tier 1 suppliers. Go deeper. Trace back to tier 3, tier 4. During COVID, many US companies proudly advertised domestic sourcing, only to discover that their domestic suppliers were importing raw materials from Wuhan. If you don't know where your inputs really come from, then you don't control your risk. Tariff readiness. Trade wars don't come with a calendar invite. A tariff can land mid-contract and obliterate your margins overnight. Smart companies build models that price in sudden duties and have contingency plans for absorbing or passing on costs. If you're caught flat-footed, the damage isn't just financial, it's reputational. Diversify your logistics. If one of your containers sails through the Panama Canal or unloads at the Port of Los Angeles, you are one cyber attack, one labor strike, or one drought away from disaster. Spread the risk across multiple ports, multiple carriers, and multiple routes. Logistics isn't just about efficiency anymore, it's about redundancy. There's also cybersecurity. In 2017, NotPetya cyber attack brought Maersk, one of the largest shipping companies on Earth, to its knees in a single day. Supply chains today run on software. If your logistics platform isn't hardened, your supply chain isn't secure. A single ransom attack can strand billions of dollars in cargo. And you need board-level oversight. Supply chain risk isn't an operations issue anymore. It's a board issue. Treat it like a financial reporting or sanctions compliance program. If your CFO or CRO isn't briefing directors on supply chain vulnerabilities, you're flying blind. Regulators, investors, and shareholders are all watching. The companies that survive aren't the cheapest. They're just the most resilient. For everyone else, here's the bottom line. Supply chains decide what's under your tree, what's in your medicine cabinet, and what's left in your wallet. It's why Christmas lights and decorations sometimes cost more than expected, because raw materials like copper and plastics move with global prices. It's why your kid's favorite toy can end up on backorder. When a container ship is stuck at a canal or waiting offshore at a congested port. It's why basic prescription can suddenly spike in price. When the active ingredients come from overseas and get caught up in trade disputes or export restrictions. And it's why inflation shows up in your shopping cart. Because every supply chain disruption, whether it's drought in the Panama Canal or a tariff battle in Washington, it eventually lands on your grocery bill. Supply chains aren't abstract. They're the hidden wiring of your everyday life. They dictate what you can buy, when you can buy it, and how much you'll pay. So where do supply chains go from here? Experts say the next decade will be about resilience, not just efficiency. Friendshoring and nearshoring. This era of China makes it and America buys it is fading. Production is shifting closer to home, to places like Mexico or Vietnam, Poland, or other allies. And the logic is simple: shorter chains, fewer risks. But nearshoring isn't a silver bullet. Costs rise, and supply chains still depend on global inputs like minerals and energy. There's also strategic stockpiling. Think beyond oil reserves. Washington and its allies are quietly building stockpiles of chips, rare earths, and even critical medicines. Businesses are doing the same, creating corporate reserves of batteries and components to avoid being hostage by the next shock. Stockpiling doesn't eliminate the risk, though, but it buys time. There's also AI and digital twins. The future supply chain may be as much as virtual as it is physical. Companies are already using AI to build digital twins, live simulations of their entire logistic network. They can model what happens if the Suez Canal closes, if tariffs spike overnight, or if a cyber attack knocks out a key port. It's basically wargaming for commerce. There's also geopolitics and logistics. Finally, expect a microscope on who owns the nodes, who finances the port in Greece, who controls the warehouse network in Africa, who runs the cloud servers that store shipping manifests. Because in the next conflict, ownership of those assets won't just be about profit, it'll be about leverage. The supply chains of the future won't just be faster, they'll be tested like battle plans. This December, every gift you unwrap carries a hidden story. Cargo ships rerouted around drought-stricken canals, tariffs haggled over in Washington and Beijing, factories in Asia running overnight shifts, and a logistics network stretched so thin. A chain only as strong as its weakest link. Supply chains aren't invisible anymore. They've become battlefields. And when adversaries aim at them, it's not just national defense on the line. It's your Christmas morning, your prescription refill, your grocery bill, your paycheck. So when we say supply chains are in the crosshairs, we're not talking in metaphors. We're talking about the real world, where power is measured not only in missiles and tanks, but in containers, contracts, and confidence. And that means the real Grinch isn't stealing Christmas, it's stealing resilience. Now, don't forget the biggest national security risk we all face, the one that puts us all in vulnerable positions from time to time, and that's loneliness. Be sure to reach out to friends and family and loved ones in this holiday season. Tensions are high. People are hurting. Remember, we're all in this thing called life together, all trying to figure it out without any instructions. So if you're down and you need someone to talk to this season, shoot me a message. Now, this isn't a ploy for more listeners, and I know it might seem weird to chat with your national security podcast guy, but I'm here. Lastly, remember the reason for the season. It's not consumerism. It's about being with loved ones, feeling gratitude for what you have, and trying to be a better person, and celebrating the birth of Jesus Christ. I wish you all a Merry Christmas and a happy holiday season. That's it for today's midweek sit rep. If this episode got you thinking, don't let the conversation stop here. Head over to the Insider Brief on Substack and subscribe. It's where we dig deeper, answer your questions, and preview what's next. We're also on YouTube, where you'll find short clips, interviews, and bonus content. Make sure to subscribe there if you haven't already. And if you want to support the show, go to everythingisnationalsecurity.com and check out the merch. Every shirt and hat helps keep Midweek SitRep independent and growing. Subscribe, share, and stay sharp. I'm Jerry Fowler, and remember, everything is national security. See you next time. Midweek SitRep with Jerry Fowler is an independent production of OpScent Media Group, LLC. The information provided in this podcast is for general informational purposes only and does not constitute legal, financial, or professional advice. Listeners should consult with a qualified professional before making any decisions based upon the content discussed. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the host, Jerry Fowler, and any guest, and do not reflect the official policy, position, or endorsement of any current or former employer, client, government agency, military organization, educational institution, or any other entity for which the host, Jerry Fowler, may be affiliated. Mention of a company, product, or service does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation. Any references are provided for informational purposes only. This podcast does not disclose any classified, proprietary, or confidential information. All discussions are based upon publicly available information and personal expertise.
Everything's national security. OpSent Media Group, LLC.